Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha. So continuing on with our discussions on Mumuksupadi by Pillai Lokacharya, with a commentary by Manavala Munigal. We have now come to the Dwaya Prakaranam. We finished the Tirumantra Prakaranam on Tirumantra, Astakshara Mantra, Om Namo Narayanaya. And now we're discussing the Dwaya Mantra, which is made up of two sections. Sriman Narayana Charano Sharanam Papadye, Srimate Narayana Namaha. And last time we had the introduction to this Prakaranam, this particular section of the book, which is the middle section. There are three sections dealing with the three mantras, the three holy mantras which are given at Samashrayanam or Pancha Samskara in the Diksha of the initiation of in the Sri Sampradaya. And the third one being 1866, chapter 18, verse 66 of the Bhagavad Gita, the Krishna Charma Sloka, Sarvadharmam Parityaja Bhami Ekam Sharanam Bhaja Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyo Moksha Yishyami Masajaha. So last time we had the introduction to this Dwaya mantra. And first of all, it was explained, there was a discussion about why we should actually take up this mantra and not take up the Krishna Charma Sloka next after the Astakshara mantra, Om Namo Narayanaya. And there are good reasons. There are some reasons to take up the Krishna Charma Sloka first, and there are some reasons why we take up the Dwaya mantra first, depending on how we look at the mantras as explanations of each other. And therefore, this particular book, Mumuksupadi, he takes it up in this way. First Astakshara mantra, then Dwaya mantra, then Charma Sloka. Okay. So after that, then we went through a couple of reasons why the Dwaya mantra is unique. Because it specifically talks about the intercession or the Purushakaratvam, the mediatorship of Mahalakshmi between the jivas, between the souls, and Ishvara or God. And also we got in the very last sutra that we tackled last time, Sutra 122. We also got a direct translation of the full Dwaya mantra, and this time we're going to take up each of the words of the Dwaya mantra one by one and explain the words and their meanings in full. So let's have a look at Sutra 122 again, just to remind us of last time. Okay, so in Sutra 122, it gives us a full understanding of the Dwaya mantra. He reveals the meaning of the Dwaya's two sentences. Right, and the meaning is he explains with the first part through Munitu, the goddess, meaning Mahalakshmi, Sri Devi, right? The first part explains one goes through the goddess, one appeals to the goddess, and I was mentioning that in Sharanagati Gadya, which is Ramanuja's prose work on surrender, which is a conversation between the individual soul, in this case Ramanuja, and Sri Devi, Mother Mahalakshmi, and the Lord, our Father, Sriman Narayana. That first of all, the Ramanuja prays to the first section of Sharanagati Gadya is called Sri Sharanagati, or surrender unto Goddess Sri. So going through her as a mediator, known as a Purushakara in Sanskrit, to go to the Supreme Lord in order to get his grace. So the first part of the Dwaya mantra explains that. Means that, right? And resorting to the feet, and it also means that going through the goddess to resort to the Lord's feet as an upaya. Upaya again means the means or the way to attain the goal. The goal, of course, of a mumukshu is mukti, right? A mumukshu is a person who desires liberation, and in this case, of course, liberation is not an impersonal sort of thing, but a personal form of liberation, a relationship, an eternal relationship of eternal service to the Supreme Lord, Sriman Narayana in Vaikuntha, along with his consort Sri Devi, and there are others also. So that's the first part of the Dwaya mantra. The second part, one requests service in their union. So after first of all approaching the Lord through the goddess, through Sri Devi, and resorting to Sharanagati or surrender at his lotus feet, right? Secondly, after doing that, in the second part, then asking for that service to be bestowed upon one, that one can have a particular service to perform for the Supreme Lord. So that's the basic meaning of the Dwaya mantra. Now we're going to go through part by part. With the first part of the Dwayam, one first goes to the goddess saying Shrimad. So the mantra starts with Shriman Narayana. Shriman is simply because of the N letter at the beginning of Narayana. The Shrimad becomes Shriman, right? The D changes to an N. That's called Sandhi. That's a grammatical thing that happens in Sanskrit. So one first goes to the goddess saying Shrimad. Then referring to Lord Narayana's holy feet, we say Narayana Charanal. Charanal is a dual case ending, so it means 2 feet. The 2 feet of Lord Narayana. Narayana Charanal. Charana means feet. So Charanal means 2 feet. So one takes refuge, right? Taking shelter means to place our head at the feet of somebody. That means to take shelter of that person. That's symbolic of taking shelter of that person. So one takes them as a refuge, the 2 feet of Lord Narayana. Saying Sharanam Prapadye. Sharanam Prapadye. Sharanam means surrender. Prapadye means I surrender. So I perform surrender, or I take shelter. I take shelter of the 2 feet of Shriman, of Lord Narayana, who is associated with Goddess Lakshmi or Goddess Shri. With the last part of the Dwayam, one refers to the union of the goddess and the Lord by saying Srimate. So Srimate is the form of the word Shrimad or Shriman that is put before Narayanaya, right? Srimate Narayanaya Namaha, right? And requests to serve service to them, to the divine couple and to the feet of the Lord, right? With the word Narayanaya. So Narayana with this Aya ending, which is a 4th case, dative case ending, which refers to service. It means 2 or 4 Narayana. 2 or 4 Lord Narayana. 2 or 4 Sriman Narayana, which is the dative case ending. Since the word namas or namo in this, at the end it becomes namaha, right? Right? Namas becomes namaha at the end of this sentence. Srimate Narayanaya Namaha. The word namaha affirms the destruction of obstacles to service. Requesting service is implied, therefore, therein. Okay. So this is a very general meaning of the Dwaya mantra. And now we're going to go a little deeper by looking at the individual words one by one and seeing their deep meanings. So then with the intention to reveal the meaning word by word, he begins by presenting the meaning of Shrimat, right? Because the Dwaya mantra starts with Shrimat. So we're dealing with the Dwaya mantra. We're dealing with the first part of the Dwaya mantra, and we're dealing with the first word, which is Shrimat. Or it's, the way it's pronounced is Shriman with the Sandhi, Shriman Narayana Charanashanam Prapadye. So text number 123. This is where we start today. Shri is the holy name of goddess. Periya Piratia. So Piratia is a Tamil name for the goddess, meaning normally when we hear the word Piratia, we mean a consort of Lord Vishnu or Lord Narayana, right? In Tamil, there are also other names that we hear which are used mostly for the consort of Lord Shiva. So the consort of Lord Shiva is not usually called Piratia. She's usually called Amman. Amman, and the Tamil word for mother is Amma. So Amman is usually the word where we heard Parvati Amman, Karmakshi Amman, like this, Vishalakshi Amman, right? So there are different names for Devi, and the goddess Parvati, Uma, the wife of Lord Shiva, she's usually called Amman. Whereas the wife of Lord Vishnu or Sriman Narayana is called usually Piratia. She's also goddess. Another name for goddess in Tamil is Nachiyar. not you. Okay, so Piratya. Now, to tell us which of the goddesses, which of the consorts of Sriman Narayana this is, the word Periya is put in the beginning. So Periya literally in Tamil means big, bigger, like the word Maha in Sanskrit. So for instance, we have Lakshmi, but we also have Mahalakshmi, the greatest Lakshmi. So Mahalakshmi would be translated into temple as Periya, Piratya. So this Periya not only means the largest, but it also means the greatest or the primary consort of the Supreme Lord, right? So another, for instance, Sri Rangam is also called, the Lord Ranganatha in Sri Rangam. There are two deities in Sri Rangam. There's the festival deity, the Utsava deity of Nam Perumal, which means our Lord, who goes around in the streets on procession. But there's also the large stone deity in the temple, right? The Mula Vigraha, the Mula Bimba, the Mula Bearer of Lord Narayana laying down on Shesha, like that. Lord Ranganatha, and Lord Ranganatha is called Periya Perumal. Perumal in Tamil means the Lord Sriman Narayana. Perumal means Lord Sriman Narayana, but which Narayana? If we're in Sri Rangam and we say Perumal, I want to see Perumal, I want to see Lord Narayana. Okay, well, there's the festival deity, and there's a small one, the movable one, and there's the immovable Lord Ranganatha. So in order to say that I'm going to go and see and have a darshan of the main deity in Sri Rangam, I will say I'm going to see Periya Perumal. If I'm going out in the street to see the procession of the processional deity, I'll say I'm going to see Nam Perumal. So when there's a procession going on, if you ask somebody, are you going for darshan? They'll say, yes, I'm going to see Nam Perumal, or I'm going to see Periya Perumal. I'm going to go into the main temple. So Periya means large, the biggest, the greatest, or the primary, right? Okay. So Shri is the holy name of the goddess. Which goddess? The goddess Mahalakshmi, otherwise known by her most important name, Shri Devi. The word Shri is used in the world as a term for wealth, etc. Right. So we see that the word Shri is often appended to different names. So like we see Shripad Ramanuja, Shri Madhvacharya, Shri Govindadas, right? So we might use the word Shri, it just to mean beautiful or knowledgeable or having great qualities, right? Right. But in order to distinguish it from that, that's not the meaning that it has here. The meaning that it has here, of course, it has that meaning too, but the meaning that it has here specifically, Pillai Lokacharya is saying, he says this word Shri is the holy name of the goddess, right? So we don't take this Sriman Narayana as just the auspicious Narayana. We can't translate it as just the most auspicious Narayana, the wealthiest person Narayana, or the greatest person Narayana. It doesn't just mean the greatest or the best or the most wealthy or whatever, or the most beautiful. It actually refers to Mahalakshmi, Shri Devi, the main consort of Sriman Narayana. Right. So he says that the word Shri is the holy name of the goddess. Thus Lakshmi, Padmalaya, Padma, Kamala, Shri, Haripriya, right, are all synonyms, right? These are all words of the same meaning, right, for her holy name. So the words that I've just given there, Lakshmi, Padmalaya, Padma, Kamala, Shri, Haripriya, right? These all come from a book called Amarkosha. So that is a quote from Amarkosha 1:128b. So Amarakosha, there was a Sanskrit grammarian called Amarasingha. And Amarasingha wrote a dictionary. He composed a dictionary. And some people may say, well, what does that mean? Okay, so there are, in Sanskrit culture, many things are written in poetry. Many things are written in verse form, in what we call sloka or verse form. So Amarakosha, right, is a kosha. The word kosha in Sanskrit means a dictionary, written or authored by a person called Amara. So this Amarasingha, right, for short Amara, he made a dictionary called Amarakosha, and that dictionary is made up of verses, and those verses contain synonyms. So, for instance, if I want to know all the different words for the goddess Lakshmi, I look in this at a particular place, and there'll be a sloka, there'll be a verse, and in verse form, it will give me all the names of goddess Lakshmi. If I want to know all the different names for a mountain or a cloud or anything, any noun, I look in this dictionary, and there'll be a verse that gives me all the synonyms for this. So what happens is that people, when they're learning Sanskrit, they'll learn Sanskrit grammar, they'll learn how to put all the words together, but then they need vocabulary, right? A person may know a language, may know all the rules for speaking a language, but he doesn't have a big vocabulary. So he reads a lot, and he gets more vocabulary by reading and by looking in dictionaries and things like that, thesaurus, and he gets more. So after memorizing all of those 4,000 sutras of Panini and understanding all the rules of grammar, the next job in learning Sanskrit is to memorize the dictionary. So people like Amarasingha, he wrote dictionaries in verse form so that they could be more easily memorized. It's very easy to memorize slokas, whereas to just memorize lists of words by themselves or to memorize prose passages is quite difficult. So this is the beauty of Sanskrit. There's a lot of memorization in Sanskrit culture, and the memorization is aided by the fact that everything is in slokas. So this is a quote from Amarakosha. Right, these are all synonyms for her holy name, Sri Devi or Mahalakshmi's holy name. But this one, in other words, the word Sri, unlike all her other names, is her primary name. As it is said, Sri is the primary name of Lakshmi, and that's a quotation from an unknown reference. We don't know where that comes from, but there's a quotation being made there. And the statement is that Sri is the primary name of Lakshmi. So we could look it up. I suppose since in the book it doesn't say where the reference is from, it might be difficult to find that reference. It may be an unknown reference now. Anyhow, we can accept it that Sri is the primary name of Lakshmi. And that's why it's being used here specifically, along with the term Narayana in the beginning of Dvaya Mantra. Just as the letter A is the primary name of the Lord. And so if we remember back to the very beginning of Mumuksupadi in the Tirumantra Prakaranam, where we're talking about the Astakshara mantra. The Astakshara mantra, Om Namo Narayanaya, starts with Om, which is a transcendental primeval syllable. That Omkara is made up of three sounds or three letters, A, Akara, Ukara, Makara, Iti. So A, U, and Ma. So the first one is A. So the very first letter of the first mantra we studied, right, is A. And A has a special significance in the Sanskrit alphabet that when we say the alphabet, every consonant has to be, we have to add the letter A to all those consonants in order to be able to pronounce them. You can never pronounce a consonant without a vowel. It's very difficult to pronounce a consonant without a vowel. So, okay. So this letter A is considered to be the first letter, and it's the first letter in many alphabets. The first letter in the English alphabet, it's the first letter of the Greek alphabet, it's the first letter in the Latin alphabet. It's the first letter in many alphabets. So it is the first amongst letters, and it is therefore a symbol of the Supreme Lord. If we think of A is the Akara means the letter A refers to Lord Vishnu. Okay, so just as the letter A is a primary name of the Lord, right, Lord Srimanarayana, similarly, Shri is the primary name of Lakshmi. So A is the primary name of Lord Narayana. And this quotation, variously attributed to Patanjali's Mahabhasya and Hari Grantha. Hari Grantha, I'm not sure exactly what that book is. Sounds like Grantha is a book, right? It can also mean a knot, but it means a book in this case. And Hari means the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Okay, so it's a book about Lord Vishnu, Hari Grantha. Mahabhasya, we know what that is. There are different saints and sages who have written on the science of Sanskrit grammar, right? And Patanjali is one of them. Patanjali was also the author of the Yoga Sutras, right? Which is very famous. Okay, so Patanjali wrote a Mahabhasyam. A Bhasyam is a commentary. Maha, again, this period of Maha means great or primary. The main commentary on the sutras of Panini, the grammatical sutras of Panini in Sanskrit, right, is the Mahabhasya. So we have many commentaries on the sutras of Panini, because sutras, like we see here, we have these sutras in Tamil. They're called churnikas, little powders, churnikas. They are the essence of something. They're the essence of something, but they can be expounded upon, which is the reason, of course, why we have commentaries like the commentary of Manavala Mamuni on these sutras. So similarly, the Mahabhasya is a big commentary on the sutras of Panini, and in the Mahabhasya there is some explanation that the letter A is the primary name of Lord Narayana. Good. So A is the primary name of Lord Narayana. This, or Shri, is her primary name. That letter A states those qualities of the Supreme Lord's, right, which are unique to his function as a protector. So we covered this in the Tiru Prakaranam, that Rakshitva, or protection, is his main function. The main function of the Supreme Lord is to protect everything and everyone, right? And this comes from a particular dhatu, or verb root that means protection, right? So that is the unique function of the Supreme Lord. This name Shri states her qualities. So thus the name Shri states her qualities, which are unique to her function as a mediator, right? So Shri indicates that she is going to be the Purushikar, she is going to be the mediator. That's the first thing. So after this, before giving the meaning of this word Shri, he presents the two ways of deriving it. Okay, so first of all, let's see what P.B. Anangacharya says about this 23rd sutra. So once again, we started with the 22nd sutra, which explains the full meaning of the full Dvaya mantra. The first part of this Dvaya mantra speaks of the matter of taking refuge in his divine feet through the mediation of Sri Mahalakshmi. The second part of the mantra speaks of the service to the divine couple that is prayed for after surrender. The meanings of the Dvaya mantra are now beginning to be explained. The Dvaya mantra is made of two parts, or khandas, right? The first part, taking refuge. Refuge is taken at his divine feet through the mediation of Periya Pirati, Mahalakshmi. Through Srimad, or Sriman Narayana, Mahalakshmi is approached first. Through Narayana Charano Sharanam Papadye, his divine feet are seeked as the means or the shelter. In the second part of the prayer, which is Srimati Narayana Namaha, is made that service to be performed to the divine couple. Srimati shows the divine couple. So Srimati Narayana means also again Lakshmi Narayana. Mahalakshmi and Lord Narayana. The fourth case ending in Narayan, that is Aya, Narayan Aya, shows the prayer to perform service, and Namaha shows the removal of obstacles to the service. So continuing on to the next sutra. The next sutra is very simple, and it simply says, the divine name of Mahalakshmi is Shri. Right. And so the meanings of the individual terms are now beginning to be explained. The word Shri has many meanings, such as wealth, etc. But here it stands for the divine name of Mahalakshmi, Periapirati. The phrase Srimati Pratamam Nama Lakshmiya is to be considered here, which means that the main name of Lakshmi is Shri. Okay, so sutra number 24. There are two, so he's going to now show, Hilakacharya and Manavala Mamini are now going to say how Shri is derived from in two ways. So sutra number 24, Shriyate, she is served or is depended on. And Shrayate, so there's two ways of deriving the word Shri or Shrimad. From Shriyate, she is served or is depended upon. And from Shrayate, she serves or depends on. Yes, these are two ways of understanding Shri. He uses the passive as well as the active voice to conjugate the root Shri. So if there's a root Shri, right, which has to do with dependence and service, right, then if we conjugate, if we add the endings to a verbal root, right, dhatu in Sanskrit, in active voice or in passive voice, and if you don't know what active and passive voice means, I'll give you a very simple explanation, right? If the subject of the sentence is put, it does something. Subject of the sentence always performs the action in the sentence. The verb shows the action. The subject of the sentence performs the action. But how the subject, what case the subject is put in, right, depends upon whether there's active or passive construction. In an active construction, for instance, if I say, the boy kicks the ball. Kicks is the action which goes on. The kicking is done by the boy, right? The boy kicks the ball. The boy is the subject. The verb is kicks. The ball is the object. Whereas I can say it in a passive way, the same thing, the same meaning is gotten if I say the ball is kicked by the boy, right? In this case, the ball is the subject. He's put in the nominative case, and in the subjective case, is kicked is a passive construction. By the boy is put in the instrumental case, by the boy, and that is a passive way of saying the boy kicks the ball. The boy kicks the ball, simple, right? Active, right? And the passive way of saying it, the ball is kicked by the boy, right? Okay, so that's active and passive. So here what we have Shri as a verbal root or dhatu, and he is conjugating it. When we add endings to nouns, it's called declining or declension. When we add endings to verbs, it's called conjugating or to conjugate, a conjugation. Okay, so he uses the passive as well as the active voice to conjugate the verbal root Shri, which means service, to get Shriyate and also Shrayate. So in active voice, we would say we would add some ending, we get to Shri and we get Shriyate. And in passive voice, we would add some ending and we get Shrayate as the meanings of Shri. So those two meanings are there. The meaning is she is served or is dependent on, right? And the other meaning is she serves, right? And depends on. So she also serves the Supreme Lord. She also depends on the Supreme Lord, right? But we are also dependent on her. So she is served and she is dependent on. Okay, once again, the analogy of the relationship between us and the Supreme Lord and Mahalakshmi, Sri Devi, right, is just like a family in which there are children and then there are parents. The parents are husband and wife. Sriman Narayana is the husband and father. Sri Devi is the wife and mother, and we are the children. So that is the relationship that we have to each other. She is our mother. She is also his consort, his divine wife. So she has that dual function, right? So he reveals the meanings of these two derivations. The meaning is, in Sutra number 125, the meaning is everyone gains their true nature, Swarupa Labhya. Labhya means to obtain, right? Swarupa means one's own form. Everyone gains their true nature by resorting to her. By resorting to her, right? She is served and dependent on, right? She gains her true nature by resorting to the Lord, right? Which is, again, here, she serves and depends on. So everybody serves and depends on the Lord, right? But not everybody is to be served, right? She is in the unique position as our mother and the wife and consort of the Supreme Lord, right? That she is in this unique position, right? So this is the meanings. Shriyate, she is served, depends on, means that she is to be served by all. She is to be served by all the children, all of us children, all of us individual Jivatman souls. All Chaitanas, it says here. Chaitanas means sentient beings. She is to be served by all. All Chaitanas gain their true nature of subservience, Sheshatva, by resorting to and depending on her. Sheshatva means whenever we hear the word, the ending twa on any of these Sanskrit words, we can add the ending nes in English. So Shesha means service or servitorship, right? Sheshatva means that servitorship. It means servantness, right? The attribute of being a servant is Sheshatva. So we, all Chaitanas, all living beings, gain their true nature. Their true nature is what? Their true nature is to be a servant of Sriman Narayana. That is Lord Narayana, along with his consort, Sri Devi. Right? So it says here, her name is Shri, coming from Shriyate. She is served or depends, she is served or depends on, right? Is dependent on, right? Means that she is to be served by all. All Chaitanas gain their true nature of subservience or Sheshatva by resorting to or depending on her. Right. So then the other meaning, Shriyate, if we take the other meaning, the passive construction of the verbal root dhatu Shri, she serves or depends on, means that since she serves the Lord, she directly serves the Lord as his consort and wife, right? She gains her true nature by resorting to or depending on him. She is an eternal Sheshi with regard to the souls. Sheshi means master. Shesha means servant. So we always remember Sheshatva means servitorship, or it means servantness, right? Sheshitva means mastership, being the master. So she is an eternal Sheshi. She is a master, right? With regard to the souls, not with regard to her husband, Sriman Narayana. She's not the master of him. She is the servant to him, but she is also the master to us. So she is both a master and a servant. She is a master to us. In regards to the soul, she is a Sheshi. In regards to the Supreme Lord, she is a Shesha, or a servant, and an eternal. So she is an eternal master with regard to the souls, and an eternal, well, really mistress, we would say, a feminine form of master. She's an eternal mistress with regard to the souls, and an eternal servant with regard to the Supreme Lord. Thus, she is eternally both served by the souls and to serve the Supreme Lord. Just as the Lord is both the means and the end, right? The means to liberation, the means to eternal service to Sriman Narayana is Sriman Narayana himself, right? So he is the means, and he is also the end. The end result or the goal is service unto him. So just as the Lord is both the means and the end, the upaya, the means, and the upaya, the end, she is also both the mediator, Purushakara, and the goal, right? Which is Purushakara and Prapya. Purushakara is the mediator. Prapya means the goal, which is to be obtained. That which is to be obtained is called Prapya, or the goal. So she is both the mediator, the Purushakara, the one that comes in between, right? Who mediates between the souls and God, right? And she is also the goal. She's also the goal. Why? Because we also serve her. When we serve Sriman Narayana, we also serve her. That example was given before, that when a servant comes to the house, the contract of the servant is with the master of the house, or the husband or the father, right? But that does not mean that the servant who comes and works in the house only is going to serve the husband and father. That servant, or that maidservant, is also going to serve the mistress of the house, or the lady of the house, the head of the house, and that is, in this case, Mahalakshmi. So, as to which is referred to here, he states, right? So in this particular part of the Dwaya mantra, the first part of the Dwaya mantra, which speaks about surrender, right? Which meaning is more important of these two meanings in this part, in this mentioning of the word Sriman, right? Here, she is referred to as the mediator, the Purushakara. So remember, there's those two. So in the first part of the Dwaya mantra, the meaning of Shri, or Shriman Narayana Charano Sharanapadaye, the meaning of Shriman is directly Purushakara, the mediator. She is the mediator, right? By saying as the mediator, he rejects the argument which says that she is also to be included in the upaya due to her status as an attribute of one who is the upaya, the Lord. Right? Somebody may say, okay, the Lord is the upaya, the Lord is the means. Right? So if the Lord is the means, what is the relationship between the Lord and Mahalakshmi, or Sri Devi? She is also something that we serve. So then doesn't that mean she's also the means? She must also be the means, right? She is the goal. We know that she's the goal. He's the goal and she's the goal. The goal is service unto both of them. So because they're so closely related, because she is an attribute of him, right? She has the status of the main attribute of the Lord, right? That isn't she also, if being the goal, isn't she also the means? That is rejected here. That idea is rejected here. She is not the means. This will be a difference between the Tengalai understanding and the Wadagalai understanding. The southern school of Sri Vaishnavas, the Tengalai school, will say like this, that she is not the means. She is the goal. She may be the goal. We do serve Mahalakshmi and as well as Sriman Narayana in Sri Vaikuntham, in Moksha. But she is not the means. She cannot be the means because she is the Purushakara. She is in between. When we approach the Lord, right, we have to approach through her. But she is not the ultimate means of liberation. She is a mediator. If she were the ultimate means of liberation, it means that she could bestow liberation herself. According to the northern school of Sri Vaishnavism, the Vadagalai school, she can bestow liberation herself. She is co-equal God with Sriman Narayana, with Narayana, her divine consort or husband. But according to the southern school, she is unable to herself bestow moksha. If she could bestow moksha herself, why she wouldn't just bestow moksha on the living beings when they approach her. Why would she need to mediate between the jivas, the individual souls, and the Supreme Lord? There would be no need for that. If she could simply bestow moksha herself, there'd be no need for that. So, because she's in the position of Purushakara, mediator, therefore, it naturally flows from that, and naturally occurs that she is not the upaya. So, by saying as the mediator, right, here, right, Pila Lokacharya is very clearly saying, here in the beginning, she is known as the mediator, Purushakara, right? So this word Shriman in Shriman Narayana refers to her primarily as the mediator. He rejects, therefore, by strongly putting this idea forward, right? He rejects the argument which says that she is also included in the upaya or the means. What are the means again? The means are clearly stated in the first part of the Dvaya mantra. Narayana Charano Sharanam Prapadye. Those are the means. Surrender unto the 2 feet of Lord Narayana. Right? We're not talking about 4 feet here, right? Because Lakshmi and Narayana together would have 4 feet. So Charanal is specifically 2 feet. The 2 feet means only Sriman Narayana. Sriman Narayana Charano Sharanam Prapadye. Narayana Charano. Narayana Charanam means the 2 feet of Lord Narayana. Sharanam Prapadye are to be taken shelter of. I take shelter of the 2 feet of Lord Narayana. Who is associated with Goddess Sri? She's mentioned, and she's mentioned there, and the reason she's mentioned there is she is the mediator. She's very important as the mediator. She's the most important person in being the mediator, but ultimately she is not the upaya or the means to liberation. So he rejects the argument which says that she is also to be included in the upaya due to her status as an attribute of one who is the upaya, right? So the Lord is the upaya. She's not the upaya. And here there's a footnote. So it says here, this is a direct attack on the understanding of Sri held by Vedanta Deshika and the Vadagalai or Northern School of Sri Vaishnavism. Deshika makes this same argument that since Sri is an inseparable attribute or quality of the Lord, according to the understanding of apritak siddhi bhava, right, which means inseparable concomitant factor, right, or attribute, right, of Vishishtadvaita Vedanta, she cannot be excluded from either the upaya or the upaya, right? And this is a quote from Rahasya Traya Saram of Vedanta Deshika, which is his book on one of his books, one of his Rahasya Granthas, one of his books on the secrets, on the 3 secrets, which we're discussing now, the Tengalai book, Mumuksupadi. His book, his magnum opus is Rahasya Traya Saram, which means the essence, Saram, Rahasya, of the secrets, Traya, of the 3 secrets. Traya, Rahasya Traya, the 3 secrets, the essence, the Saram, or essence of those 3 secrets. So he is explained in chapter 23, pages 567 to 568, and we'll see this if we study Rahasya Traya Saram, we'll see that this is how Vedanta Deshika argues that she is, by the idea of apritak siddhi bhava, or inseparability, inseparable relationship. She has an inseparable relationship to Sriman Narayana. She's never separated from him. And because of that, right, in Vishishtadvaita, he argues that it is unwarranted to interpret the Sriman differently in the first and the second sentences of Dvaya. And that argument he gives also in Rahasya Traya Saram, also in chapter 23, right, page 652. So he says, how can you say there are 2 mentions of the word Shri or Sriman in the Dvaya mantra? We have Sriman Narayana Charano Sharanam Prapadye, And then in the next verse, we have Srimate Narayanaya Namaha. So in each case, each of the two halves of the Dvaya mantra begin with the word Shri or Srimad. Sriman Narayana and Srimate Narayanaya. So in both cases, the word Shri is very important. But the meaning of the word Shri, there are two meanings, right? And one meaning emphasizes this Purushakara or mediatorship. So it's very important to understand that the first meaning of the first part of Dvaya Mantra is about mediatorship, about Purushakara, right? And the reason that Pila Lokacharya is emphasizing this so much here, right? He's emphasizing this so much here, is that he wants to put to rest this idea, this other idea. So the point being emphasized here is her nature as a Purushakara or mediator. As long as one knows the inherent relationship between the Lord and the souls, which is in keeping with the Lord's status as the abode or resting place of all creatures. Remember the meaning of the word Narayana. We break it up into Nara and Ayana, right? The resort or the resting place of all Naras or all creatures, right? Narayana. Why is it necessary for the Chaitana or the individual soul, the Jivatman, the sentient being, who is resorting to him, to first go to her? So this is a good question, right? So because we started to understand the word Shri, and the word Shri is mentioned twice in the Dvaya Mantra, in the beginning of each section of the Dvaya Mantra. So first we start with the meaning of the first Shri, or Shriman Narayana, right, in the first part. And we've understood it to mean primarily about mediator, that she's a mediator between the souls and God. And therefore, the question naturally comes out after we've established that as the meaning. Then the next question is, why? Why do we need a mediator? Why can't we just say, Narayana Charano Sharanam Papadye? Why do we have to say Shriman Narayana Charano Sharanam Papadye? Why do Sri Vaishnavas always say Shriman Narayana? Why do they always say Shriman Narayana? Why don't they just say, oh, we worship Narayana, we worship Krishna, we worship Baba? Why do they always say Shriman Narayana? Why do they always add Shri? Why is Shri important to say before we say Narayana? Why is it there in the Dvaya Mantra? And the reason is because, right, she is the mediator, and the mediator is important. And why the mediator is important is going to come up next. So before we look at the answer to that question as to why we have to resort to her as a mediator, right, and we can't directly appeal to the Supreme Lord's mercy, right, to save us directly, right? So the answer to that question, we first of all, before we get the answer to that question, let us see what P.B. Anangacharya says about these sutras up and into including 126. So again, Sutra 124, the word Shri can be extracted from its root through two derivations, Shriyate and Shrayate, which we saw was the active and passive conjugation of the verbal root or dhatu Shri. From the root Shrinj, Sevayam, right? So what he's doing here, P.B. Anangacharya, in his commentary, he's quoting from a work called Dhatupat. Dhatupat means the recitation of roots. So there is a list of roots, about 2,200 basic verbal roots. These are all verbal roots, not noun roots, but they're verbal roots from which all Sanskrit nouns and words can come from, pretty much all, right, except for a few, right, come from these verbal roots. So each of these verbal roots is explained, the essential meaning. So just like we had the essential meaning of the letter A, that's explained also as to be Rakshitra or Rakshatra to protect, right? So the Lord's essential meaning of the letter A, which is his primary name, is to protect. So similarly, if we look in the Dharupad, it says Shrinj, which is the root of Shri, right? Sevayam, sevayam means service, right? But see, when it just means service, it doesn't tell us, is she to be served or does she serve? And we've seen that by conjugating that root, she also serves him, and she also is to be served by us. So it means both, right? But the root itself just means service, okay? So Shri can be extracted through two derivations. Shriyate iti shrihi, right? This is a definition in Sanskrit, right? The word iti means thus, or also indicates direct speech in Sanskrit. In Sanskrit, we don't have any inverted commas. So we have no way of telling what direct speech is in Sanskrit, except for the word iti coming after a sentence means that it's in direct speech, like that. For instance, in the Rama Charma Sloka, we have Tavasmi ti, Tavasmi iti, Tavasmi iti chayachite. Yachite means to say. So by saying Tavasmi, I am yours, right? So a person who actually says, I am yours. So Rama says to say, I am yours, right? He doesn't say it because it's supposed to be direct speech. He puts the word iti there. So Tavasmi iti, Tavasmiti chayachite, right? Otherwise, he would make it in different construction, and he would say, if you say you are mine, but he doesn't say to say you. If you say you are mine, he doesn't say that. He says, if you say I am yours, right? Direct speech. So when we use direct speech, we use the word iti in Sanskrit. We don't have inverted commas as we do in some other languages, like English. So this word iti, shrayate iti shrihi, right? So there's two understandings here. Shriyate iti shrihi, that Shri is thus Shriyate, and Shrayate iti shrihi. These are two definitions in Sanskrit. So sometimes when there's a definition, a Sanskritist will say something. He'll say such and such, iti such and such, and he'll quote the thing to be defined at the end. The name of the thing to be defined is Shri, right? So Shrayate iti shrihi is correct, and Shriyate iti shrihi is correct. Both are correct. They're both two correct definitions. So this is the action, right? This is the action, the karmani, right? And then shrayate iti shrihi. This is the person doing the act, or the kartritra, right? So karta in Sanskrit means the doer. It also can mean the soul. It has a dual meaning. The soul is also considered to be the doer. Okay, so so Shri is a person who does the act of service, according to Shrayate. According to the first meaning, Shriyate, she is the person who is served. Okay. So here in this particular sutra, he explains 124. He explains both of those meanings. Right. So because there are two meanings, once again, first word in the Dvaya mantra is Shri, Shriman. How do we understand Shriman? Okay, so let's understand the root Shri. The root Shri can be given two definitions. Shriyate iti shrihi, shrayate iti shrihi. So because it can be given two definitions, and the two definitions have different meanings, right? That is stated in 124, the two meanings. So now in Sutra 125, right? In Sutra 125, we'll see what are those two meanings. What are the meanings gathered from the two derivations, Shriyate and Shrayate? From Shriyate, it's gathered that everyone seeks her, meaning that it is through her that all Chaitanas, all living beings, gain their true nature. Their true nature is to serve the Sriman Narayana and to be liberated and serve him eternally. From Shrayate, it is gathered that she seeks him. She seeks him, shelter at his feet. We seek shelter with her. She seeks shelter with him. We seek to serve her. She seeks to serve him. Right? So the service is accepted by her. Our service is accepted by her. Her service is accepted by him. So from Shrayate, it is gathered that she seeks him, meaning that it is through him that she gains her true nature. Her true nature is also that she's dependent upon the Supreme Lord, just like we are, right? But she is, of course, his eternal divine consort. So she's much greater than us, and she has this other ability to intercede between us. So in the commentary, Pibhidangatacharya says, through the Karmani derivation, the Karmani derivation, once again, is the action, right? The meaning is gathered that everybody worships her. Everybody is worshiping her. That is, for all the living beings, right? It is through her that their nature is realized. Through the doer or the Khatri derivation, the meaning gathered is that she worships him. That is, that it is through him that she realizes her nature. Therefore, the Shri Nama, or the noun Shri here, shows that she has the Sheshi Bhava, right? The Sheshi Bhava means, the Bhava means the attribute, right? She has the attribute of a Sheshi, or a mistress, a female master, a mistress, the Sheshi. She has the Sheshi Bhava towards the Chaitanas, or the living beings, the sentient beings, the Jivatmans, right? The other Jivatmans. And that she has the Shesha Bhava, or the servant, the attribute of a servant towards Ishvara, or God, or Narayana, or Lord Narayana, her eternal consort and husband and Lord. Okay. So both those meanings are there, right? So now, okay. So we've understood there are two derivations. There are two. There's one root of the word Shri. It has two meanings, right? Those two, we understand what those two meanings are, and now the question is, which one of those two meanings is appropriate for the first mention of the word Shri in the Dwaya mantra? Mahalakshmi is taken up in the first part of Dwaya because her nature of mediating, Purushakara. So he is highlighting one and one only meaning of the word Shri in the first part of the Dwaya mantra. Just as he has two qualities of meaning, upayatvam and upayatvam. So the Lord also has two meanings to him, right? He is the means and he is also the goal, right? So two, she has two qualities of mediation, which is Purushakara Tvam, right? It means mediatorness, right? Mediatorship, right? And the end, Upayatvam. Upayatvam means she's also the goal. Why is she the goal? Because the goal is not just to eternally serve the Supreme Lord Sriman Narayana, not just to serve Sriman Narayana eternally, but to also serve Sriman Narayana along with Goddess Lakshmi eternally. So we are going to serve them eternally. So she is also part of the goal, right? Here, the first part of the Dwaya mantra, she is mentioned because of her quality of Purushakaratvam, her mediatorship quality. And therefore, she is to be resorted to as a mediator. But she is not the means. The Lord is both the means and the goal. She, right, is the mediator and the goal. So the Lord has two aspects to him. He's the means and he's the goal. She has two aspects to her. She is the mediator and she's the goal, right? So they're both the goal, but their initial function is that she's the mediator and he is the means, right? She's not the means. Whereas the northern school of Sri Vaishnavism, the Vadagalai Deshika Sampradaya, following Vedanta Deshika's Rahasyatraya Saram, will say that she is also, right, the means, but she is not the means. We approach her, and we approach her as a mediator to get the grace of Sriman Narayana, and it is the grace of Sriman Narayana, it is Sriman Narayana himself who is the means of our liberation, not the goddess Lakshmi. She is not the means. She is a mediator on the way to the means. Okay, so back to the main text. Back to the main text. So, text 126. Here she's referred to as the mediator, Purushakara. By saying as the mediator, he rejects the arguments which says that she is also to be included in the upaya due to her status as an attribute of one who is the upaya or the means, the Lord. Right, so we discussed that. We also discussed this. As long as one knows the inherent relationship between the Lord and the souls, which is in keeping with the Lord's status, right, as the abode or resting place for all creatures. This was discussed before, and we just mentioned it. Narayana means the abode of, or the resting place, or the shelter of all living creatures. Why is it necessary for the Chaitanya? Why is it necessary? Now, here's the question. Why is it necessary for the individual soul, right, who is resorting to him to first go to her? Why is it necessary to have a mediator? Why is it necessary? Why? Okay, she's a mediator, but why is that necessary? All right, so here's the answer. 127. If, like stirring up fire and water, anger should spring up in the Lord, right? Cooled mind due to the soul's sins. It is for her sake that he will forgive. Right? So this sutra is giving us the answer. The Lord's holy mind has been pacified and cooled by his special quality of friendliness to all beings. He says this in Bhagavad Gita, even in the 6th chapter. Suhridam sarvabhutanam. I am the well-wishing friend of all living beings. Right? So here that's being described as sarva bhuta, means all living beings. Suhritva. Suhrit means a well-wishing friend. Suhrit, good-hearted. Right? I have a good feeling in my heart towards somebody. I'm a suhrit. Right? So he is the suhrit of all beings, of all sentient beings. And tvam again means nest or ship. Right? So the Lord's holy mind has been pacified and cooled by his special qualities of friendliness to all living beings. He naturally has this friendliness, right? Which is just like water, it's cool and pacified. And equanimity as a refuge of all. So he has another auspicious quality. Remember, he has ananta kalyana gunas. He has unlimited auspicious qualities. So these are two of them being explained here. Sarva bhuta suhritva. He's the friend of all living beings, right? And samashrayana niyatve samatva, right? He is equal to all, right? As it is said, I'm friendly to all creatures, and I am the same or equal to all living beings, right? Okay. So, and these quotes come from Bhagavad Gita 5:29, which I just quoted, right? I'm friendly to all creatures, right? And what did I say? The 6th chapter, the 5th chapter, 5:29, right? And Bhagavad Gita 9:29, I am the same to all. Samoham sarvabhuteshu. Samoham sarvabhuteshu is the quotation. Okay, so these are in the Bhagavad Gita. These two attributes of the Lord, are part of his unlimited auspicious qualities, are explained. Okay, so that's understood first, right? So it is said sometimes the Lord, who is continually kindly, becomes angered at people who are full of sins, right? And this quotation is from Parasara Bhattashri Gunaratna Kosha, right? Number 52, text 52. So it says, sometimes the Lord, who is continually kindly, becomes angered at people who are full of sins. Now, who does that mean, people who are full of sins? That means everybody here in this material world, because everybody has been here since time immemorial. And if we look at, for instance, Alavandar Yamunacharya's Stotra Ratna, in there he says, what is it, what sin is there that I have not committed, right? You imagine if you have unlimited lives that you've lived before, if you have an infinite number of lives that you lived before, it means probably you did everything possible. Maybe everything possible good, maybe everything possible bad, but most likely because you're in this material world, you did everything possible bad. It means you've committed every single sin. You've committed sin. So there's no living being in this material world, no nitya buddha, no eternally conditioned living being, right? Who can say that he's innocent, that he has no sin. In fact, each one of us has a multitude of sins coming from these unlimited lives. We have done everything bad. We cannot say that we're innocent. We are not innocent. We have got all of these sins. So what is he talking about here? A person who is full of sins? He's talking about every single person, every one of us. Every one of us has all these sins from many, many lifetimes, right? So none of us can, because we don't see the other lifetimes, it doesn't mean the sin isn't there. It doesn't mean the karma isn't there, right? Right? Sometimes we think, oh, these little children, children who were just born, they're so innocent. They're not innocent. They're not innocent. No one in this material world is innocent. Everybody has these multitude of sins. And this is why in the Bhagavad Gita at the end, Arjuna, when talking about the Krishna Charma Sloka in the 18th chapter, verse 66, Lord Krishna says, Sarva pape bhyo mokshayishyami. He says, Sarva pape bhyo mokshayishyami. I will protect you and lead you to moksha. I will give you liberation from all these sins. Sarva pape bhyo. From sarva pape bhyo means, sarva means all sins. All sins. Because you have committed all sins. And this was the problem that Arjuna had, that he thought all of these processes in the Bhagavad Gita, the Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, all of the different processes in which the Lord had taught him and told him that you can do these things, all of these would be hampered by the fact that he had committed every sin, even though he's a great Kshatriya. But in his previous lives, he as a conditioned living being, he must have committed every sin. So we are in the same position as Arjuna in the sense that we all have this burden of unlimited sin, of every sin committed, right, over unlimited lifetimes, that is weighing us down. Therefore, the Lord, somehow or other, that sin has to be taken away, right? So sometimes it's said that sometimes the Lord, who is continually kindly, he says he's kindly and he's equal to everybody, but he can be angered by the fact that we have this unlimited sin. In that way, like stirring up an unapproachable fire in cold water. Not sure exactly how you do that, but maybe by the action of stirring cold water, it somehow gets warmer, right? Because of the energy put into it, let's say, right? The analogy is a little beyond me here, but anyway. Anger may arise in the Lord because of excessive sins the Chaitanya has committed. Right? So we are afraid. We're afraid to approach the Lord directly because although he says that he's friendly towards us and he says that he's equal to everybody, right? We know that we have this burden of sins, of unlimited sins. So when we approach him, we think maybe if we approach him directly, he may reject us. So thus, he may say, I reject him, right? And this is a quote here from Bhagavad Gita 16:19. Or I won't forgive, right? And this is attributed to a quote from the Varaha Purana. If so, if he says these things like I reject him because of his sins, or I reject him, or I won't forgive these sins, I won't fully, why should I, I set up this whole system of papa and punya, of sin and good action with karma, this whole system of action and reaction in this material world. Why would I therefore forgive it all? I reject him or I won't forgive him. So if so, we're afraid of that. We're afraid of going directly to the Supreme Lord because he might adopt this attitude towards us. If so, just like the children in the family, again, we have the father and husband, we have the mother and wife, and we have the children. And the children, if they have done something wrong, right, they don't immediately go to the father to be pardoned. Instead, they go to the mother and they say, "Mother, I did something wrong. Can you please tell the father and have him forgive us?" Like that. So she intercedes. She is the Purushakar. She's the mediator between the children and the father, her husband. And she's able to get him to show his grace to the children because of her relationship with him, right? So, if so, it is only for the sake of Lakshmi that he will forgive, right? So, for the sake of her, right, he'll forgive the children, right? Even if he doesn't think the children need to be forgiven, but because of her pleading, right, he'll forgive him. He'll forgive them. For if it is she who cuts off his anger with her words of advice, saying such things as, what is this? Who in the world is faultless? Right? So here's her argument. Her argument to him is, okay, you won't accept these Chaitanas, you won't accept these children, you won't accept these errant living beings, these sentient beings who have committed so many sins, and you won't forgive them, and you won't accept them, right? You're rejecting them. But then she says, okay, what's the logic in that? What is this? Who in this world is faultless? In fact, everybody, as I just said, everybody in this world is sinful. Everyone has this. So if somebody with a lot of sins comes to you, you can't reject them because they have the sins, because everybody has sins. Then you would have to reject everybody, right? And this quotation here also comes from Sri Gunagratna Koshabai Parasarapata. Again, the same text 52. So what is this? Who in this world is faultless? Thus she causes his compassion to arise, right? Because once she points out to him that you want to reject these people, don't forgive these people because they have a heap of sins from being in this material world from time immemorial. But everybody's like that. That's the situation of everybody in this material world. So then who would you forgive? At least they're approaching you. They're approaching you to serve you. They're approaching you to take shelter of you. They're approaching you for the solution, right? So thus she causes his compassion to arise. So he has compassion, right? He has a quality of compassion, but in order to be a catalyst to cause that compassion to exhibit itself, she makes these entreaties on the behalf of the souls of the living beings. For this reason, even one who knows of his inherent relationship with the Lord, right? What was the main stumbling block to liberation that we found when we were discussing the Tira mantra? It was cured by the word namo. Namo meaning giving up of ahankara and mamakara, giving up of I-ness and minus. So once we give up the I-ness and minus, how do we do that? By realizing our true nature. Our true nature is what? Our true nature is completely subservient, dependent, and supported by the Supreme Lord, right? We are eternally his servants. So therefore, once we give up I-ness and minus, serving these other masters, and only serving Sriman Narayana, and that is our original position. That is our natural position. And therefore, once we find that natural position, right, it says here that even those who understand their inherent relationship, their eternal position, right, as a servant, right, of the Lord, right, will be afraid on account of his sins, on account of our sins. So even though we realize that we're meant to serve the Lord eternally, and that's our natural position, we still will be afraid of our sins. That there's some reaction, there's some sinful reaction that's holding us back because he may not forgive us. He may reject us. Therefore, he needs to go through a mediator. He needs to go through a mediator. So if you think there's a chance, if there's a chance, any chance at all, that you'll be rejected or not forgiven by the Lord, right? And certainly there can be a chance. Why do we think there's a chance? Because of the so much sin that we've gathered over these innumerable lifetimes. Because of so much sin, there has to be some chance, right? Even in the Bhagavad Gita, it says, "I cast them down, never to come up." You know, there's some verses there. There's some verses in Bhagavad Gita which says that we are bound to be thrown down, you know, and rejected and not accepted by the Lord. So there's a chance. We read in Scripture, there's a chance. There are these scriptural quotes given here, right? So if we think even a little that there might be a chance that he might reject us, therefore we need to go through a mediator. When you go through a mediator, then there's no chance. There is no chance of being rejected, right? Because he's not going to reject Sri Devi. She's not going to reject Mahalakshmi. If Mahalakshmi intercedes and if Mahalakshmi goes to bat for us, right, then there's no way that the Supreme Lord is going to reject that. He's going to accept it. Even begrudgingly, he'll accept us. So if the goal is to be accepted by the Lord, to take shelter of his lotus feet, because he is the only means to liberation, then it has to be through a mediator, and that mediator has to be Lakshmi, because that is her position. That is her unique position as mediator. He reveals that she alone is a flawless mediator for both sides, right? So there might even be other mediators. There might be other people who try to mediate between us and God, the Guru and whatever. But she is the flawless. She is the most perfect. She's the perfect mediator for both sides. She's perfect mediator as far as he's concerned, because he's never going to reject her recommendation, right? And she's the perfect mediator for us because she's never going to, because of her innate expressed mercy, she's never going to reject us, right? The mother never rejects the children, right? And the husband never rejects the wife. So because of her unique relationship between us and the Supreme Lord, right? She is the flawless mediator. She is the perfect mediator, right? There may be other mediators that are not perfect, but she's perfect. So thus she reveals that she alone is the flawless mediator for both sides, taking the responsibility for the work of saving the soul on one hand, and pacifying Vashikari. Vashikari means actually controlling, basically, having this control over him and making the arguments on behalf of the souls, right? That he cannot resist accepting the souls, right? Pacifying the Lord on the other hand. So on these both, she's the perfect person to do both of these things. If there was a perfect person to take responsibility for saving the souls, it's her, right? The perfect person to nurture the children is the mother, right? And the perfect person to pacify the husband or the father, right, is also the mother. She's the perfect person to do both these things. Okay. So let's see what P.B. Anangacharya, how he puts it. This Sutra 127. So, Sutra 127. Again, the meaning is, just as a great fire can happen even over cool water. A great fire can happen even over cool water, right? Okay. He might develop anger. This analogy sort of escapes me exactly how it works, but maybe somebody else can translate it in a slightly different way, right? To explain it. he might develop anger in his tranquil divine heart due to the great sins of the living beings. But he forgives those sins for her sake. He'll forgive those sins for her sake. For the Chaitanas, or the living beings, who has, for the Chaitana, the living being who has understood his natural relationship with Sriman Narayana, what is the need to seek her for the purpose of mediation? The answer is that just as a great fire can erupt even over cool water, having seen the enormous sins committed by the living beings, he too might develop a great anger at them, even in his kind and divine heart. But he forgives those sins for her sake. She makes his heart give birth to compassion through her advice. Therefore, even for those who have understood their true nature as completely supported and protected and subservient to the Supreme Lord, and right, even those persons, right, due to fear of their past sins, it is necessary to approach her first. So let's continue on with the main text, Sutra 128. She is their mother, who? The Chaitanas, the living beings, unable to bear their distress, right? The father may think, oh, if the children have some problem and they're experiencing some distress, the father may say, well, they acted in that way, they deserve that, they should suffer, and then they'll learn. That the father's attitude is like that. The mother's attitude is, though, even though they committed some mistake and they're suffering, still her heart breaks when she sees her children in such a state. So she is unable to bear their distress, even if they did something wrong. She is his wife and sweetheart. Therefore, she is a flawless mediator. So once again, this idea that she's the flawless mediator. She is the mother of the Chaitanas, of the living beings, as stated in the passages saying, you are the mother of all the world. And that comes from the Vishnu Purana 191. And mother of creation, that's from Ramanuja Sharanagati Gadyam, right? Because of her relationship with them, if she sees the souls who are suffering, she cannot bear it. Indeed, if her own children go crying, the mother cannot tolerate it. And that's a quote from Periyalwar Tirumoli 223 from the Nalaya Divya Prabandham. So Periyalwar, the father of Andal, he has stated that, right? He has stated that if her own children go crying, the mother cannot tolerate it, right? And we are all her children, right? Every living being. She is his wife, described as the wife of Vishnu, and that quotation comes from that comes from Taitira Samhita, right? Because we have the Vishnu Gayatri, the Lakshmi Gayatri, and Sri or Lakshmi Gayatri coming in the Taitira Samhita, or more probably in Taitira Aranyaka, mentions what is the Mahadevye Chavidmahe. So Mahadevi is her name. Mahadevye Chavidmahe. Vishnu Patni Patnyai Chadimahi. Tanno Lakshmi Prachodayat. So Lakshmi's Gayatri mentions her as Vishnu Patni. She is the wife of Sriman Narayana. Vishnu Patni. Patni means wife. Patnyai, Vishnu Patnyai Chadimahi. So Mahadevya Chavidmahe, Vishnu Patnyai Chadimahi, Tanno Lakshmi Prachodayat. That is the Lakshmi Gayatri, and that Gayatri mantra is found in Taitira Aranyaka, which is a part of the Taitira Krishna Yajurveda. Okay, so she is his beloved, and he is so infatuated with her, right? He loves her so much that when he sees her indescribable beauty, he does what she says. For he is mad for the woman on the cool lotus. This is another Nalaya Divya Prabandha quote. This is from Tiru Nentun Tandakam, right? Number 18. Text 18. Thus, she is the flawless mediator. So he's saying here, not only she takes his advice because she has this logical advice and she gives the reasoning, and she tells all the reasons why he should accept us, and he should forgive us for all our sins. But he's also madly in love with her, and therefore, because he loves Lakshmi, right, so much, he therefore will forgive the sins of the souls. All this notwithstanding, it is the Lord of unconstrained autonomy. He still has autonomy, right? Even though, yes, of course, he is enamored by Mahalakshmi, and she is his divine consort, which he is greatly in love with. Still, at the same time, he's still independent. He's Swatantra, right? Completely independent, whereas everybody else is Paratantra. Everybody else is dependent on him, including Lakshmi, right? He is still completely independent. So notwithstanding this, right, it is the Lord of unconstrained. It is the Lord of unconstrained autonomy, who is the one who cuts off, roots out, and expiates the Chaitana's sins, right? So it is not Lakshmi who forgives the sins. It is not Lakshmi who destroys the sins. It is not Lakshmi or Sri Devi who awards liberation. This is specifically spoken about here by Manavala Mamuni. He's saying, even though it appears here that she's the cause of liberation, she's the cause of at least the immediate or primary cause of liberation, or the cause of the forgiveness of the sins, right? So, notwithstanding all of this was stated above, it is the Lord of unconstrained autonomy. He is actually independent, right? And who is the one who cuts off, roots out, and expiates, right, the living being's sins. So, is it really she who causes him to forgive, right? So the question is, right, the question has to come then, right? Is it really she who causes him to forgive? If he's so independent, then is it really her who causes him to forgive? Right? It may just be an excuse, right? She may be an excuse for him to forgive us. Her entreaties. So let us see what Bibi Rangacharya says about the next, about Sutra 128, before we move on to the answer to that question. So, Sutra 128 again, since Mahalakshmi is the mother of all Chaitanas or all living beings and will not tolerate their suffering, and she is also the consort of the Supreme Lord, and therefore his delight, her mediation will always happen without hindrance, right? It'll always be a successful mediation, right? He'll always accept what she says. She'll always accept and the Jivatmans who have taken shelter of her. Would her mediation do this much? Yes, for the following reasons. One, she is the mother of all Chaitanas, of all living beings, the Akila Jagan Mataram, right? And this is an appellation or a name given to Mahalakshmi in Sharanagati Gadyam, in the first part of Sharanagati Gadyam. It says Akila Jagan Mataram, Asmad Matram, right? So Ramanuja, first of all, he says Akila Jagan Matram. Then right after that, he says Asmad Matram, to make it even more personal. He says, not only are you the mother of all living beings in this universe, but you're also my mother, right? So he emphasizes it. You're the mother of everybody, but specifically, you're my mother. So therefore, please intercede on behalf of me to the Lord. And because of that relationship, she cannot tolerate their suffering. As we discussed before, the way the mother sees the suffering of the children. Secondly, she is the divine consort, and being very dear to him, the Supreme Lord, he delights in her and would listen to her. Therefore, her mediation does not stop even for the smallest moment. There is no hindrance to her mediation. Her mediation is always completely 100% successful. in order to mediate, a person has to have the following two qualities. They should have great love for those on whose behalf they mediate. Right? Right? So a mediator has to have these two qualities. First thing is they have to have great love for those on behalf of whom they mediate, and with the person with whom they mediate with. So they have to love both sides. They have to be equal to both sides. At least in this material world, they have to be objective, right? But here we see they have to love both sides. They should have the ability to debate and win, right? So this is, Mahalakshmi has this ability to point out to the souls not to go to the Supreme Lord directly, because I'll do that, and he may become angry with you and reject you and not forgive you. So let me do that. And then she also goes to the Supreme Lord and makes entreaties on behalf of the souls and is able to convince him. So what is she able to debate and win? She's able to convince the souls not to go directly to the Lord, and she's able to convince the Lord to forgive the souls. So both these qualities are abundantly present in Sri Mahalakshmi. So back to the main text. Right, text 129. There is no need to say that she who made Hanuman become tolerant will make the one who does what she says forgive. There's no need to say this, right? There's no need to say that she who made Hanuman become tolerant will make the one who does what she says forgive. The strong-willed Hanuman was eager to inflict severe punishment, right? So this is setting the scene here. We have Goddess Sita, who is Mahalakshmi, right? She is in the Ashokavana. She is being kept prisoner by Ravana, and she's being guarded by these female demons, these Rakshashis. So when Hanuman went there, Rama gave his ring to Hanuman to show Sita that he was coming to save her. And Hanuman was so angry, he wanted to kill all of the guards. He wanted to kill all these demonesses, these Rakshashis, right? But Sita made him become tolerant of that. So the strong-willed Hanuman was eager to inflict severe punishment after adding up the sins of the Rakshashis, who had threatened and derided Sita, the goddess, for 10 months. But she was the one who made him, Hanuman, accept to be taught and be tolerant with them by counseling him, saying such things as, "Who is angry?" And that's a quotation from the Ramayana, 6:116:39, right? And also by saying, "There is none who has not done anything wrong," right? Which is what we were saying about people in this material world. That's also a quotation from the Ramayana from 6:116:45, 6 verses later. The Lord is described as the one on whose chest dwells the lotus lady. And that is a quotation from Munram Tiruvandadi 3, text 3. Right? Continuing on. The one who enjoys the fragrant glances of the maiden of the great lotus, and that is also another Melody quote from Periya Tirumoli 8:10:1. And we have another quotation here coming from Tiruvai Moli 3:10:8. The Lord is overcome with pleasure from his union with the daughter of the lotus flower. So this is all talking about the Lord's relationship, right? So we have here, first of all, the explanation about, this is the explanation about the qualities of Mahalakshmi or Sita in the actual sutras, talking about Sita Devi. Thus, he is completely overwhelmed by her physical beauty, even when she told him to follow the magic deer, Mariche, there was a magician who appeared as a golden deer, and Sita told Rama, go follow this deer. Rama didn't want to follow the deer. He thought it might be a trick, but because Sita asked him to do it, he did it. So Rama did as she said and went after it, unmindful of the consequences. As it is said, Rama, following his love for you, seized his bow and left. Right, and this is a quotation also from Naledi Periya Tirumoli, Perialwa Tirumoli 310.7. So how much more fitting is it to say that she can make him forgive? So she can make him do anything. She can make him do anything. So now, continuing on, Hilalokacharya's younger brother, who is called Alagiya Manavala Perumal Nayanar, right? Alagiya Manavala means beautiful bridegroom. Perumal means Lord Vishnu, and Nayanar, I guess I'm not sure exactly what Nayanar means, but anyway, he's had this name, right? His spiritual name. Alagiya Manavala Perumal Nayanar is his younger brother, who later on gave us the Acharya Hridayam, I believe. Right? After the Mumuksupadi and the Srivachana Bhushanam were written, he gave us another text called Acharya Hridayam, which talks about Acharya Abhiman. Anyway, has revealed the same thing. He says, Acharya's younger brother says, and this is Manavala Mamuni quoting here from him, as it is said, there is no way to repay the help you have given, right? And this is another quotation from Nale Divittabana from Periya Tirumoli 582, right? There is no way to repay the help you have given. Hanuman risked his life for both her and Rama. Yet she opposed him so that Hanuman had to do what she said, right? The Lord is the one who yields to her delightfulness. As it is said, she embraces him. And this is another Nello Prabandha quote from Munram Tiruvandari 100. He becomes so intoxicated that he gives up, saying, what can I do? Right? What can I do? Right? She pleads with him so much that he eventually just says, what can I do? Described as following his love for you, right? Again, from Nala Divipavana period. That is period Tirumoli 310.7. The previous one was Munram Tiruvandari 100, right? And there is no way to repay the help you have given. Actually comes from period Tirumoli 582. Okay, so then continuing on, we have, is it necessary to say that she can make him forgive? Is it necessary to say that, right? Alagiya Manavala Perumal Nayanar, right? In his Aruli Chail Rahasya. Rahasya means the secret. Aruli Chail means of the Naladivi Bandham, right? Edited by Velakudi Varadacharya Swami, right? Velakudi Varadaraja Swami is the father of the present Velakudi Krishna Swami, right? And this was, I believe, printed by Sri S. Krishna Swami Iyengar in 1972 in Trichy, page 131. So those are all very famous Sri Vaishnavas, no longer living. So here's the point, right? So as it is said, there is no way to repay the help you have given. Hanuman risked his life for both her and Rama, yet she opposed him so that Hanuman had to do what she said. The Lord is the one who yields to her delightfulness. As it is said, she embraces him. He becomes so intoxicated that he gives up, saying, what can I do? Described as following his love for you and the one who follows after it, he yields to her smile, regardless of the consequences. Is it necessary? Is it necessary, therefore, to say that she can make him forgive? It's not necessary. It's obvious. Thus, he has heretofore presented the meaning of the stem Shri. The stem Shri in the word Shriman or Shriman, Shriman Narayana. There's two parts to Shriman. There's Shri and there's the Mat, the Man part. So there's Shri and Man. So now we've discussed the Shri, right? After this, he will present the meaning of the suffix, which means Mat or the Man. So we've now just discussed the meaning of Shri and Shriman, right? That is the meaning of the word Shri. Let's see what Divyanangacharya says about this 129th sutra. So once again, Sutra 129, she was able to make Hanuman change his mind when he wanted to kill the Rakshashis who had tortured her when she was in prison. Therefore, is there a need to wonder that she should be able that she should be able to make her consort, the Supreme Lord, who listens to her, change his mind? When she can make Hanuman change his mind, and she can, therefore, it's obvious she can also make the Supreme Lord change his mind. All of the previous points are true, but Sriman Narayan is supremely independent. If he decides that he will not forgive us the sins of the Chaitanas, if we will not forgive the sins of the living beings, and will punish them for their crimes, right? Will Mahalakshmi be able to stop him? That's the question. This argument is made by those who are not aware of her abilities. During the imprisonment her imprisonment in Lanka, in the Ashokavana, and surrounded by the demonesses, she was tortured without stop by the Rakshashis, the demonesses, who surrounded her. Upon seeing that, Hanuman had decided that he will take care of them after Rama's victory. He will punish them. Once Ravana was killed, Hanuman went to her and asked her permission to kill those Rakshashis. At that point, she advised Hanuman and made him change his mind. When she is able to make one who would not listen easily to anyone change his mind, what is the need to question that she should be able to change the mind of her consort, Sriman Narayana, who delights in her and who always listens to her, even in the instance when she asks him to go after a false deer, that golden deer. So we've understood now. What did we understand? We understood that the first part, that we understood that the word Shri comes in two places in the Dvaya mantra. We're taking up the word Shri in the beginning of the first part of the Dvaya mantra. And we've understood that the verbal root shrinj or Shri, right, means service. And it can be understood in two ways, right? Shriyate and Shriyate, right, in an active and passive way, and what it means. We have then understood the meaning of that in the first part of Dvaya mantra, the word Shri or Shriman refers to Goddess Lakshmi. Definitely, it's a primary name of Goddess Lakshmi, and doesn't just mean an appellation of Narayana, who is great, who is wealthy, who is wonderful, who is beautiful. It actually refers to Mahalakshmi directly in this context. And not only that, but it refers to her as being the Purushakara or the mediator. So the meaning out of the two meanings, the one meaning of her being a mediator is most emphasized in the first meaning of the first mention of Shri. The other mention of Shri we'll come to when we discuss the last part of the Dvaya mantra. But in the first part, it means that. We've also understood that the Vadagalaya, the Deshika Sampradaya, and Vedanta Deshika, and the Northern School of Sri Vaishnavism have another view on this, and they say that that in both cases it should be understood in the same way. The Tengalais understand the first meaning of the Shri, the word Shri, to mean as the Purushakara. The important meaning is in the beginning as the Purushakara, that she is the mediator. So she has two functions, as a mediator and as the goal, because she's also served in moksha, in eternal service to the Lord and to Goddess Lakshmi also, right? So he is the means, and he is also the goal. He's the upaya and the upaya. She is the Purushakara and the upaya. She is the mediator and the goal. She is not the means of liberation. She is not the means of forgiving our sins, but she is the one that we have to resort to first in order to make sure that our sharanagati, our property, our surrender to the Lord is 100% totally assured and successful, right? Because she never fails to convince the Lord. And the example is given in that last sutra of when she convinced Hanuman not to kill the Rakshasas, or not to punish the Rakshasas after Ravan had been killed in the Ramayana. Okay, so any questions about this? Because now we've understood Shri. Next, we're going to understand Srimat. We're going to understand what the ending mat or man means in Sriman, in the first part of the Dvaya Mantra.
No, Swami, you gave a very, very good summary at the end, and I think that explains it all. One of the questions that I had before was, why would God need, a mediatrix? But that it was answered there in the sutras anyway. So that's it. Because I was thinking, if you were to put this forward to like other, religious groups, like maybe even something like Islam, I say, well, God is the judge and God is everything, so why does he need a mediator or mediatrix? But it was answered there basically.
Okay, so we'll pick it up next time.
Thank you.
Yep,
Jai Shriman Narayana. Namaskar.